Hey there, Amy with Momentum Physical Therapy. Thanks for joining me for the second installment of our special focus on headaches and migraines. We're on day 2. The first video we talked a little bit about the most common types of headaches, so tension type headache, cervicogenic headache, and a migraine. And we talked a little bit about the key characteristics of each headache. And I wanted to talk a little bit more today about migraines and some of their specific features and the genetic influence, specifically the genetic influence that migraines tend to have, or that we tend to notice. So a migraine specifically, if you look at what's called the International Classification of Headache Disorders, they define a migraine as a headache that lasts between 4 and 72 hours if left untreated, tends to be unilateral, although they say up to 40% can be bilateral, meaning both sides. So it tends to be on one side of the head. It can switch sides. It tends to be pulsatile or throbbing in nature. And it's aggravated by or limits normal daily activities or work. You can have nausea and vomiting associated with it, also sensitivity to light and or sound. And also people talk about sensitivity to smell as a very frequent one as well, although that is not included in the International Classification of Headache Disorders. So migraines tend to affect women more than men at almost a 3-to-1 ratio, and it tends to affect about 12% of the population overall. And the interesting thing about migraines is that they've also noticed people who suffer from migraines also tend to be predisposed to other conditions, including anxiety, depression, increased stress levels. For some reason, snoring is linked to migraines, which I find interesting, and also obesity. So just what they've noticed, that people with migraines tend to also have those conditions as well. And one of the quotes or descriptions that I like best when talking about the relationship or the genetic relationship with migraines is that migraines can be genetically driven and environmentally mediated. So genetically driven but environmentally mediated. So they have looked into the genetic link of migraines, the familial link, and have found that if one parent has a history of migraines, there's a 50 to 75% chance that the child will as well. And they found that link tends to be stronger with a migraine with aura versus a migraine without aura. And so they're doing a lot of studying into this genetic linkage and studying what that may be due to, or what components of the genes are influenced the most and seem to be most key. And so they're doing a lot of studies on ion channel genes, and that's thought to be most likely the link with migraines is those ion channel genes. So what happens often is patients will, or clients will say, you know, I have migraines, but my family members did as well, and I just have that in my family history. I'm just predisposed to it, and I just have to live with it. And so I really like to come back to that thought of, or that description of, migraines are genetically driven but environmentally influenced, meaning you may be slightly more predisposed to have migraines than someone else because of that familial link, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to suffer with them forever, or there's nothing you can do, or that you should just feel that you have to accept it and move on. So there's lots of different treatments available. Oftentimes we talk about common headache or common migraine triggers, different types of food, or lack of sleep, or increased stress, or being around bright lights. And I think the important thing to think about is that those triggers aren't what cause a migraine. They make it more likely that you will experience one. So thinking about the things that you can change in your environment to help decrease the likelihood of experiencing a migraine. And so I have a lot of patients who get a lot of benefit from tracking their migraines for 30 days, 30 to 90 days. And either that's on paper, writing down the days they have headaches, what the the predisposing factors may have been, if there were any triggers that they noted, the time of day, and how long it lasted, and if they took any medication or did any treatment for that. And that can be either on paper, or there's a great app called iHeadache. There's also another great app that's called My Migraine Buddy, which is kind of a funny name for a migraine app, I think, because, well, one of my patients laughed about that and they said, that's a terrible name for an app. Like, who wants, I don't want to have a migraine buddy, I just want to have the migraines gone. So anyway, but those, also I'll put links below to both of those apps, and then also a link to just an actual paper document where you can track your headaches there. So many people have noticed, been able to develop useful links between different environmental factors and their migraines when they've taken the time to track those over 1 to 3 months. So just some tips to start looking for patterns that you might see and ways to track that. And also keynote that, you know, there is a familial or genetic link with migraines, but it's not necessarily going to be the only outcome, or that because you have family members that have migraines, you will also have migraines and you will also suffer with them, and there's nothing you can do. So environmentally mediated, genetically driven. So that's the version 2 or day 2 of our special focus on headaches and migraines. Wanted to tell you a little bit more about migraines. Tomorrow we will be talking about some self-treatment techniques for both migraines and tension and cervicogenic headaches. If you have any questions, be sure to pop them in the comments below, and I look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow. Thanks.